Hello everybody, welcome back to Gooner Fanzine TV after Arsenal's 2-1 FA Cup triumph over Chelsea, a record 14th FA Cup for Arsenal on what was a brilliant day. Went 1-0 behind early on for a Christian Pulisic goal, but Arsenal struck back. They stayed strong in what was a gritty performance. Aubameyang, Arsenal's captain, 2 wonderful goals, a penalty in the first half, and then a really delicate chip in the second half to win the FA Cup for Arsenal. It was a magnificent day, wasn't it, Layth?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, disclaimer, I've been drinking all weekend, so you probably get even less sense out of me than normal.
I think we all have, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. But it was just brilliant, wasn't it? It was absolutely fantastic. From sort of going to, after Project Restart with a humiliating 3-0 loss at City, to winning the FA Cup in the space of literally 6 weeks. It's just incredible. Yeah. The scene was set obviously with the semi-final against Man City, where they produced a performance that could have beaten anyone in the land. Admittedly, City didn't actually play that well, but at the same time Arsenal played really well. And they brought that into the final. Chelsea obviously qualified for the Champions League, finishing top 4, and that's a tremendous achievement. But to actually win silverware and then to beat your London rivals as well, after arguably the most disappointing season in 25 years, and qualify for Europe as well, which obviously gives us a massive boost in terms of revenues for next season too. Yeah. It was just incredible. It was just joyous, absolutely joyous.
I think, it's definitely a case of every cloud has a silver lining, doesn't it? After what was quite frankly a terrible season, we've come out of it with something that we can be proud of, really. Yeah,
absolutely, yeah. I've watched most cup finals since '79. '93 was my first Arsenal Cup final, FA Cup final. It was just, obviously, I've covered a lot of games after Restart. I was never going to get accreditation with the final. The big boys had that. There's only 25 spaces for a worldwide global match. So I've probably been, nowhere near the pecking order, probably in the top 50 rather than 25 potentially. But at the same time, it allowed me to watch it as a fan rather than as a journalist. And it was just joyful. It was wonderful. That first 20 minutes, as you said, like Pulisic scored a really good goal. His balance, his composure, the execution, his movement. I couldn't really blame the Arsenal backline for that, although Rob Holding could have been tighter on him. But at the same time, Arsenal go 1-0 down, and all you're thinking about is Baku, another 4-1 humiliation, basically. Yeah. And the way Arsenal turned it round was just incredible. Yeah. Deserve all the plaudits in the world for them, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to add a little bit of context. Obviously, Chelsea lost 2 key players to injury, Azpilicueta in the first half and then Pulisic in the second half, who was by far and away their most dangerous player until he went off. Yeah. And obviously Kovacic was sent off after Arsenal made it 2-1 to give Chelsea very little hope. But you look at it two ways. Arsenal, they've made their own luck in a way. They've had some decisions go against them and some bad luck this season, but they've karma's kind of balanced itself out in a way. Yeah. And to Arsenal's credit, they were so gritty. They stuck at it. To go 1-0 down early in a cup final, it takes so much heart to come back and win a game and perform like they did. Yeah,
absolutely. Well said, Dan. I mean, it was just a shame there wasn't 90,000 people there watching it, and 45,000 Arsenal fans. You could argue, there has been a bit of karma in terms of Chelsea's misfortune yesterday, and obviously clearly the football gods weren't shining on Chelsea with the 2 injuries and potentially they're sending off as well. But at the same time, Jorginho should have been sent off in the league game back in December.
Very true.
And 2-1 defeat in Arteta's first home game, basically, and it was a blatant red, basically, and it didn't happen. So, I'm not sure where you can argue that it does even itself out over the course of a season, because when you play football it does feel like you've been hard done by sometimes. Yeah. But certainly the luck was with Arsenal yesterday in terms of key decisions going Arsenal's way, and we can't have always said that this season.
Yeah, definitely.
And over the last few years as well. So if you're a Chelsea fan, you could probably bemoan the fact that that there were a couple of crucial pivotal moments that didn't go your way, but ultimately Arsenal's performance after that first 25 minutes was absolutely magnificent. The back line looked solid, wing backs pushed forward, the midfield were really tenacious, forwards were lively and dangerous. It was just a really excellent performance, and that's the level of performance that Arsenal can deliver under Arteta, and hopefully next season that will be a regular feature.
Yeah. Let's touch on a couple of the key players and Arteta later on, obviously. Aubameyang. mean, he was just fantastic, wasn't he? He took his second goal superbly. To have that kind of composure in a cup final just shows the kind of quality he has. And then, you know, he absolutely ran rings around the Chelsea defence to win the penalty. It's just fantastic, isn't he? I mean, how good is he compared to some of the strikers that Arsenal have had in their history?
Yeah, he's up there with the best of them.
Yeah.
You know, he scored 2 goals in a cup final to win the cup final for Arsenal. Already, he's probably elevated himself into the top echelons of Arsenal strikers in Arsenal's history, and that goes back to 1886. Basically, his goal, the winner was just the first goal was absolutely magnificent, wasn't it? In terms of the way he powered on, the left-footed sort of dink, the composure he showed, the real temperament of a player at the top of his game. I know we're saying he's 31 and there is a lot of talk about his contract, but Arteta was interviewed afterwards, and I know you couldn't say anything else on camera, but he said he was confident of Aubameyang signing that deal, and if Aubameyang signs that deal, Arteta can then build a team around him, hopefully with the Cronkies releasing a bit of funds over the summer to bolster the squad. Arteta could be a genuine Arsenal hero for as long as Arsenal's talking about, basically. And 2 goals in the cup final to win the game was just magnificent, and it was quite fitting in a way that he actually dropped the trophy, because that pretty much
we'll
summed
come
up
on to that.
As well. But he, as you say, his power, his pace, his temperament, his technique, his finishing ability, just his general overall threat throughout the whole game. He worried the Chelsea backline. They were scared of him. They were backpedaling by the end, and obviously, he got the 2 goals, which was just joyous, basically, as I keep saying.
Yeah, of course. We talk a lot about his attacking threat, but ever since he's become captain and Arteta's been appointed, he really seems to relish that role as a leader. He's stepped up in the biggest moment of Arsenal's season to score 2 goals and win the game.
Yeah.
He's done his job as a striker, but as a captain, he's been a leader in that situation. He's also working a lot harder defensively. You see him tracking back a lot more and helping the kind of left wing back or left back, whichever formation Arsenal are playing.
Yeah.
He really does seem to be relishing that role now.
Yeah. And he's a completely altruistic teammate as well, because he doesn't mind working that left channel. If I was like the striker, I'd be like, well, I want to be the main man where Lacazette is, or whoever is going to play up front, basically. And Aubameyang has been so unselfish playing down that left channel, and like you say, he's worked so hard, he's tracked back, he's always so full of danger as well. We've obviously covered a lot of press conferences at London Colney with Mikel Arteta and Emery previously, and obviously Arsene Wenger before that. And there's been some days when we've sort of been driving in and we've been overtaken by this gold Lamborghini. Yeah. Literally late for training, basically, on the way to Arsenal training ground. He's never actually been late, as far as I know, in terms of being fine. But he's cut it fine a few times. So, there's that, and you wonder, like, behind the scenes how he is. But I've been in mixed zones. I remember being in Sporting Lisbon in Portugal after Arsenal beat Lisbon 1-0 last season. Yeah. You walk through the mixed zone and you're there, and all the journalists are there, and you're interviewing the players and stuff. And he's walked through. And some players will walk through with the headphones on, pretending to listen to music. Some will be on their phone, pretending to check their phone, just because they don't want to talk to a journalist, basically. And Aubameyang stopped and he talked and he had time for everyone. He was speaking in French, he was switching between French and English. He is actually a really good guy as well, and he's a real captain. He's a real leader. He is one that the players do look up to. So you could argue, he spends a lot of money on flash cars, but then if you want £200,000 a week, well, why not? It's not disrupting any of his play. And yesterday, again, underlined how much of a leader he is and how well respected he is and how he deserves that position as well, because he's been absolutely superb this season. He was only a goal or 2 away from another golden boot, basically. And arguably, maybe he should have had it, but at the same time, the level of consistency is that separates the good from the great, basically. And he, reaching 50 league goals quicker than Thierry Henry for the club. There's just so many reasons to commend him. And yesterday, if he leaves next week or whenever, then that will be his legacy. But hopefully, he will stay and he can really build on next season. Arsenal can kick on. Arteta can build a side around him, and we can qualify for the Champions League, and who knows what else after that. But you're absolutely right. He's just an absolutely fantastic player, fantastic captain, fantastic person. Yeah, I think he strikes a really good balance between, being a serious leader on the pitch and having that kind of fun-loving, happy personality that really lifts people up when he's not so much on the pitch. If you look at his social media, he's quite, he seems like quite a happy, fun-loving guy, doesn't he? Yeah. But it's interesting, you mentioned Thierry Henry there, and by no means is he on Thierry Henry's level at the moment. He's obviously still got a long way to go to match that kind of legacy. But I've been reading Amy Lawrence's book about the Invincibles lately, and she talked about how Henry needed to feel that love from his teammates and feel worthy and wanted to do his job.
And I think Aubameyang gets that from his teammates, doesn't he? If you saw the reaction that he got at full time, they all kind of waited for him to come to them, and there was a big circle around him, and everyone, seemed to be giving him that love and adulation that he definitely deserved for his performance yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely, and well spotted as well. Yeah, it was just great to see the fact that the esteem he had. He was held in by his teammates because they were looking to him rather than celebrating between themselves, which obviously they did as well. But it just shows you the level of respect he's earned at Arsenal through his performances and through his off-field behaviour as well. Yeah, there is a long way to go if he wants to be at the sort of Thierry Henry level. But on his day, he's as good as anyone. Yeah. Good as anyone in world football. So that's why Arteta's got to say to him, look, okay, we can't offer you as much as Barcelona. But you're on a good wage at the moment. You'll be at least $250,000 a week. If Arsenal do offer you a new contract, which I'm sure they will do, plus a signing-on fee, you will be an absolute idol at Arsenal. Yeah. If you go to Barcelona, you'll be a footnote. Yeah. And he's 31, so arguably, a club like Barcelona would always be looking for marquee signings every year. Aubameyang would be this season's one. Who's to say who's going to be next season's one? And if you bring someone else in, Aubameyang would be discarded without a second thought. Yeah. Whereas at Arsenal, he's got 3 or 4 good years because he is a good trainer. He's fit. He eats well. He trains well. He respects the game. He's got an absolute huge future at Arsenal if he stays. If he signs that contract, he could be an absolute idol at Arsenal. Yeah,
I think that love from his teammates and also the relationship he's clearly got with Arteta will be key in keeping him. There are some positive noises coming out of the club and Arteta especially about Aubameyang's future. And we mentioned Arteta there. Let's come on to him. Obviously, he's been Arsenal manager for 8 months now, and he's won the FA Cup already, and he's starting to really turn things around. You can see things improving both on and off the pitch in terms of performances and the culture around the club, which needed a massive change, didn't it? Yeah. Just how big of a difference do you think he's made from when he first took over to now?
Yeah, again, very good question. We always go back to the fact that we were in his initial press conference, his opening press conference. He said he was going to be ruthless. There was going to be a quiet revolution there. Everyone had a clean slate. But he was going to judge everyone on what they did as he was manager, basically, in the training sessions and in their games and in the performances and the work rate. Not just the games, but obviously in the training sessions at London Colney. And there's certain players who've fallen by the wayside. Obviously, he goes out saying Mesut Ozil. Everyone wanted Mesut Ozil to do well, but he hasn't worked hard enough. And Arteta's ethos and philosophy and tactics are all about pressing from the top. All the way down, it cascades all the way through the team. And if it doesn't care literally if you're a World Cup winner. If you're not going to work hard enough, if you're not going to buy into that ethos, if you're not going to help the squad and the team in terms of getting to where Arteta wants you to be in terms of that intense work rate, then you're not going to be picked and you're going to be absolutely discarded. Mesut Ozil wasn't even in London as far as I know yesterday.
Yeah, he was in Turkey, He was given permission by the club to go back to Turkey because he obviously wasn't going to be involved.
Absolutely. So how would he feel if he even watched the game? Yeah. I've not checked his social media, so I don't know if he's...
He did tweet after the final saying, congratulations to my teammates, I'm happy to win another FA Cup, kind of along those lines. So he clearly was, following the game in some way. But to still... I understand he's been given club permission, but to still not be there. And you've also got to consider the amount of, the limit of people that can be in the stadiums because of the coronavirus risk. But to not even be in the country, let alone at the stadium, kind of reflects his atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's not dwell on Mesut Ozil for too long. Let's stay positive. How big of a stepping stone can winning the FA Cup be for Mikel Arteta and his reign as Arsenal manager?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I watched Arsenal. I started watching Arsenal in the 80s. My dad was an Arsenal fan as well. 1987 is an analogy I've sort of talked about before. When I was on TalkSport the other day, we were talking about a young, hungry manager in George Graham took over in 86, 87. With a team of really hungry players. He moulded in his image, basically worked hard, but they had talent as well. He melded the two together. He won the Littlewoods Cup that season, the League Cup that season, and they never looked back. And it set the sort of cornerstone for the Anfield '89 victory, basically, when Arsenal went up to Liverpool famously and won the Division 1 title, which is obviously the Premier League now, with the last kick of the season, basically. You can't underestimate how important it is to win silverware. Yeah. To basically empower you to kick on, to make you realise how good you are. You can always just put the pressure on, as Spurs do, and bring out DVDs and all the rest of it because of it. In terms of, let's sort of pat ourselves on the back even though we've not won anything. Yeah. And it's not good enough, basically. Arsenal are always about trophies, basically. Spurs have been patting themselves about finishing 6th again. And who's won the trophy this year? Who's won silverware? I know you could argue, okay, well, we finished 8th. But we've lifted something. There's another note in Arsenal's history now on our honours board, saying we've won the FA Cup, and that shows a team of winners basically, and they can really kick on. If the Cronkies open their purse strings in the summer, build that squad a little bit more, bring in some potential centre half, defensive midfielder, depending on what Aubameyang does as well, potentially another forward, they can really do something next season. And every time they'll have to dig deep away to, I don't know, Aston Villa or somewhere, they'll have the knowledge now that they've won silverware. They're good enough to do that, and that will absolutely empower them. That will bolster them even more. So you can't underestimate how important it is, and hopefully Arsenal really can kick on next season.
Yeah, it's interesting you made that George Graham comparison, because I think there is quite a lot of striking similarities between them. You know, two former players who've come in and had to really turn things around, and they've gone on. You know, they've both won trophies early on in their reigns, and there's a lot of comparisons there.
Yeah, two former players who also won it as the FA,
of course,
as a player and as a manager.
Yeah, of course. Let's talk about kind of the players' reaction to Mikel Arteta. Right at the end, I mean, it was almost like he'd gone back to being a player himself.
Yeah,
you know, he was in the huddle, he was being sprayed with champagne, he was spraying the others with champagne. But there was also, you could see that love and respect that he's earned already. You know, I think every player went round and hugged him. Even the players like Lucas Torreira, for example, who's not particularly played as much as I think he probably would have liked to. Yeah. But he was there. There was a good, 15, 20 second embrace, and Torreira is screaming with pure joy and happiness and respect towards Mikel Arteta. And that reaction is what you need to get the best out of your players, isn't it? To have that love and respect for you as a manager.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you touched on it earlier, the fact that he knows when to be a manager, he knows when to put an arm around someone, and that's all about being emotionally intelligent. That's about responding to players, and there's not a one size fits all sort of recipe for dealing with players. You know, some players do need a kick up the backside, other players need an arm around the shoulder basically, and he's applied that to every player in that squad while being absolutely clear about what he wants from those players. So there's no ambiguity there. There's no grey areas. He will tell them he's told them what he wants, and the players in themselves, like Lucas Torreira, knows he hasn't played that well this season. You know, and like you said, it's a really good point there. He is still hugging the bloke who has dropped him, who's not picked him for the cup final, because he absolutely respects him as a manager, and he also respects him because he was a player who won a lot of trophies basically in his time, and he was a well-respected player. Obviously, when lifting the FA Cup as a captain for Arsenal, that's going to buy you a lot of respect to start with. But that means nothing the day you step in as head coach. And he's won the respect over from the whole squad for the way he is. He's an honest bloke. Like I say, we both interviewed him at London Colney and the press conferences at the Emirates after games, Premier League games, European games, whatever. And he's a really honest bloke, isn't he? He will tell you how he feels. Obviously, he's got to play a dead bat on a few things. All football managers do.
Definitely.
All footballers, all sportsmen do. You can't be open with everything. But at the same time, do you remember the Leeds game when Arsenal beat Leeds 1-0 in the FA Cup?
Yeah.
And it wasn't a particularly good performance. In fact, the first half was a dire performance from Arsenal, and they should have been 2 or 3 behind against a very good Leeds side, basically. But Arsenal prevailed somehow 1-0. Which set us on to Wembley basically 6 months later, 7 months later, wherever it is. But he said, do you remember that we were sat together, or we were sat in the press conference together in the Emirates afterwards, and he said, "I'm not happy. I'm really not happy. I'm actually angry about the level of commitment my players give. I told them what to do, and they didn't listen to me." Yeah. We were sitting there going...
Brutally honest, wasn't it?
Yeah, brutally honest, absolutely. We were amazed by that. And obviously it made good copy. As a journalist, you want to write interesting things. Yeah. But it also shone through that he was criticising his players, but he wasn't. Like, Mourinho will throw his players under a bus. There's no two ways about it. He doesn't care. And you could argue, you could question that, whether that's right or not. Arteta will do it in a really subtle way. He will make his point, absolutely, but he won't criticise players. Yeah, he won't make it personal. And that's such good management, basically. Yeah, and to go back to what you were saying, absolutely. Every player to the last one jumped on him and celebrated and hugged him and just relished the fact that he was the boss that led Arsenal to their 14th FA Cup, basically. Yeah,
I just don't think he can be given enough credit for what he's done. He's been there 8 months and he took over a club. But let's be honest, we're in free fall. Yeah. It was one win in 15.
Yeah.
Under Emery, and then later Freddie Ljungberg, I also think deserves a bit of credit for adding a bit of stability in that time.
I loved his tweet today.
Yeah, I mean, he's an Arsenal man through and through, isn't he? And he's did so well in that kind of 5-game spell to stabilise. But back to Arteta, he came into that situation as a manager with zero experience. We got to remember that as well. He's not been a manager before, and he came into one of the biggest clubs in the world. in dire straits, and he's turned it around. The form has turned around on the pitch. The culture, as we said earlier, seems a lot better.
Yeah.
And he's won a trophy at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, massive credit needs to be given to him for what he's done so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was his 28th game in charge at Arsenal.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the stats about other Arsenal managers or managers in general that have won a trophy after 28 games in charge. It's phenomenal. And you know, as I say, I mean, I interviewed him as a player. You know, we've interviewed him as a manager and stuff. He speaks so well. He's intelligent. He's sharp. He's progressive. He's just a man for Arsenal. He's a man to lead Arsenal to future glories, basically. And let's hope he will. He deserves all the plaudits he's earned so far, because he's just. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, let's go on to some of the key players, and you can look into the positive light. We're going to touch on the goalkeeper and two defenders. Emi Martinez. In the build-up to the final, there was this kind of backstory of that he's been at Arsenal 10 years now. He's been there a hell of a long time for a footballer, hasn't he? And he's only just passed double figures for league appearances, which is a crazy stat. But he talked a lot about, you know, that journey he's had and not playing much, and he also talked about his family back in Argentina and not being able to see them, and coming over as a scared teenager. He admitted he was scared, which is completely understandable, and the sacrifices his family made in his childhood. And this was a moment that you really felt was decades in the making for him.
Yeah.
And he was brilliant yesterday again, wasn't he, as he has been?
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. I mean, we've covered him for the under-18s, the under-21s, the under-23s at Arsenal over the years. We've seen his progress, and we've seen his progress stall as well at various stages. He's gone out on loan to 6 different championship sides over the years. He had a really good spell at Reading last season.
Brilliant at Reading,
He really was, and that maybe marked a few cards at Arsenal.
I think it almost earned him his future in a way. You know, there was a lot of talk about would he stay or would he go, and he was really good at Reading, and he's come back and obviously fought for his place, and he's got a little bit of luck with Leno's injury, but as you say, you know, he's earned it and he's deserved it, and he's shown why he should be playing. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you talk about Reading. I think his debut. I was at his debut. It was actually against Reading, October 2012, in that ridiculous 7-5 extra time victory over the Royals. He didn't particularly shine that night, like conceding 7 goals. He never are as a keeper, 5 goals as a keeper. But at the same time, you know, he's been around the club so long, and he's earned the right to have a chance. I must admit, I didn't think he would progress as well as he has done since Bernd Leno's injury. I thought he'd be a competent keeper, but he's been far more than that. You know, you look as a keeper, you look at the footwork. The footwork, for me, first and foremost, the footwork, because you can have your handling, you can have your position awareness, you can have your shot stopping, but if you're not getting in a position to be able to activate that, to facilitate that, you're not going to have a start, basically. And his footwork is excellent. And I think that comes from the fact he played outfield as a young lad in Argentina. And he's just always had that extra bit of sort of nous and savvy in terms of his footwork. If you're talking about his handling is excellent. When the way he commands an area when the ball comes over, you want your keeper to do that. He's quite a physical presence, but it doesn't. You could be 6'4" and still drop the ball every time the cross comes over. His handling is very good. His eye to hand coordination is excellent. His organisational skills are excellent as well. He's not afraid to ball out players. And I know you were mentioning at half time, you sort of spotted the fact that he was very vocal with.
There's a clip on YouTube. I think it's on the FA Cup's official YouTube channel. It's kind of, you know, behind the scenes look at the FA Cup final, and there's a point where the whole Arsenal squad walk out into the tunnel before the second half, and he's the one, you can hear him being vocal, and you can see him, you know, he's hitting his hands and he's saying, come on, we can do this, we can win this. That's what you want from your goalkeeper. You want someone who's commanding, who's a real authoritative figure, and he is that.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree, and that was a good spot that you said before as well. Just in terms of his distribution as well, he's excellent with distribution. Again, that goes back to really proficient technical skills in terms of playing the ball out with his feet. He's a big presence. He's agile as well. And also he's athletic, and you don't get that with every keeper. A lot of keepers are athletic these days, but some of the saves. There was a save against Watford last week. I was covering a game at the Emirates, and
the one from the Danny Welbeck back heel.
Absolutely. It was almost like
incredible.
His arm telescoped. It's sort of extended in a way. You know, sort of. I couldn't see that coming. It was a bit similar to Seaman's save against Sheffield United in the Cup semi-final in 2003.
Yeah, you just didn't think he was going to get there.
It was almost behind him, and you just didn't think he was going to get there, basically. And he's done that, and he's done that time and time again since Bernd Leno's injury, basically. So, you know, I did put a tweet out to sort of my followers and the Gooner followers about, do I think Emmy Martinez has got a future in top level football? Yes. Do I think he's a great keeper? Yes. Do I think he's Arsenal? No. And I literally said that about 6 weeks ago. And to be fair, a lot of people said, well, I don't agree with that. And my opinion is, I think next season it's going to be really close.
It's going to be one hell of a battle for that number one shirt, isn't it?
There's a lot of articles being written about that, and there's a lot of discussions to be had about that. But I do think Bernd Leno will come back as number one, potentially. Yeah. But if I was maybe, it'd be a cigarette paper between them, basically. But he's done so well since Leno's been injured. He's showed character as well. And obviously, you touched on it there. The fact that he has come over from South America, from Argentina, as a raw youngster. He's had to leave his family, the things he knows, the things he loves, leave his family behind, and settle in a strange country, foreign climes, and he's just done so well.
Yeah,
he's done absolutely well. He deserves so much credit for it. And to watch him after the game, you obviously saw it as well when he was being interviewed by BBC, and then Aubameyang jumped on him, and he that was great, and that was really joyous, and there was a bit of bounce and all the rest of it, and then the sort of interview just asked him how he felt, and he just broke down in tears, didn't he? And that was just that's what playing for Arsenal, playing for the Arsenal meant to him. That's what the victory meant to him, in terms of the sacrifices his family made, and that's what it meant in terms of winning it. And it was glorious to see. Yeah,
there was also another clip of him, after the final whistle, when the celebrations had died down a little bit, and he was sat leaning against the advertising board, and he was talking to his family on his phone with his headphones in. He was in tears again. Yeah. And that, that kind of emotion shows how much he cares about not just Arsenal, but about, his family and about the things that are important to him. And you can't
manufacture.
Yeah, you can't manufacture that, and it's so important to have that kind of, to say, I can be emotional when I need to be emotional, and have that within the squad. You need people who understand what's going on around them and with others and themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from a fan's point of view, it was absolutely wonderful to see such raw emotion. It was absolutely joyous. But at the same time, as journalists, how many times have we gone to sort of press launches or book launches or kit launches where there's publicists there, you've got the club there, and I know that's the way it works these days, but at the same time they're almost being forced or spoon-fed a bland script, and to see that raw emotion, that genuine emotion from a player who's absolutely overjoyed about winning the trophy because of all the sacrifices he'd made, all the sacrifices his family had made, and just the emotion from actually winning it for himself, for his family, and for Arsenal as well, for the Arsenal Football Club and for the Arsenal fans. It was just wonderful.
We talked earlier about Arteta's kind of ruthlessness, and we've seen what's happened with Ozil and Guendouzi, but one player who's done the opposite of what those two have done is Maitland-Niles, who is known on the Gooner Fanzine podcast as Maitland-Miles with Glenn, who clearly enjoyed himself last night. He was messaging at 4:30 in the morning when we were all fast asleep, so we hope you're well, Glenn. He was one of the few who answered my call at full time as well, and he was quite clearly just as drunk as I was, so as we say, hope you're well, Glenn. But Maitland-Niles is someone who, when Arteta first came in, he looked like he'd been exiled in a way. He wasn't in the squad, let alone playing. Yeah. And we questioned his attitude a little bit and how he was applying himself in training and other things like that. But he has really turned it around, and he's been key in this FA Cup run, especially yesterday and in the semi-final against Man City. He was absolutely superb again. Yeah,
completely agree. The level he was at yesterday was the level that we know he's capable of, basically, but he's not always delivered. I always reference the fact that, I did a game in Brittany last season for the Europa League, the game against Rennes. Yeah. And he was dreadful in that first. Ismail Smile, the Watford lad last week. He played in that game. He scored. It was a really, really poor 3-1 defeat. I think Arsenal got a late goal through. Was it Reece Nelson? I can't even remember now. But basically, Arsenal went back to the Emirates in the second leg with a 3-1 deficit. Maitland-Niles was superb that night. He played right midfield. He was absolutely amazing. He scored a goal. I think it was his first Arsenal goal as well, and that was a level you wanted him to be at. And he's dipped so badly over the coming months and seasons basically since then. But yesterday was a reminder of how good he can be. And I think it's credit to him, obviously, but it's credit to Arteta as well, because Arteta doesn't have an agenda. He doesn't hold grudges. All he wants you to do is perform for him. And Maitland-Niles, the whispers coming out of the club over the last month or two, have been really positive.
Yeah.
Basically, you know, I've talked to a couple of sources and stuff who are at the club, and they've said his attitude has completely changed from where it was pre-lockdown, I should say. Yeah, he was magnificent. He competed for every ball. His positional awareness was a lot better.
He was really threatening going forward as well. There's a couple of times he got behind on that left-hand side.
He was a real worry to
real danger,
yeah, absolute real danger. And he did so well. And obviously Arsenal do need to restructure the squad, to reboot the squad. And then we did a story in the Gooner Fanzine website about potentially him moving for 20 million, which would then release funds to either plough into Aubameyang's contract or buy another player, basically. But I'm not sure I'd want him to go now.
No,
I'm not sure I'd want him to leave.
I think it'd be foolish. Yeah, it'd be foolish to sell a player who is so versatile.
Yeah.
And you can look at kind of both sides of the coin and say, someone that versatile may never hold down a position because they can play anywhere. But you look at someone like James Milner, for example, at Liverpool and Man City, who's played in multiple roles and has made a real career out of being a versatile player.
Yeah.
And Maitland-Niles definitely has the quality and ability to do that.
Yeah. I think he learnt a lot in that season. He went on loan to Ipswich, basically, and he kicked on initially when he first came back to Arsenal. And it is a case of jack of all trades, master of none, and you can fall through the cracks in terms of not having a position you can tie down as your own. But at the same time, he was magnificent yesterday, and I think if he's at that level for every game in terms of intensity of training, in terms of playing, in terms of performance, he's got a bright future at Arsenal, and Arteta won't want to let him go.
Yeah, and it's always good to see an academy product do well.
Yeah,
and obviously yesterday, we've talked a lot about the youngsters this season, and yesterday was more of a day for the experienced players, wasn't it? But I'd like to touch, going a little bit back earlier into the FA Cup run, and specifically the first three games, against Leeds, Bournemouth and Portsmouth. I tweeted this out earlier in the week, and every goal that Arsenal scored in those three games, there was a Hale End academy product involved in either creating or scoring the goal.
Yeah.
And it's so good to see young players coming through the academy and making a mark like they have done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we covered the Leeds game from the press box. That was that was a Reece Nelson scored that night, wasn't it? And a poor performance for Arsenal generally, but we got through. We did the game at Bournemouth, didn't we?
Yeah, Martinelli sets up Saka, and then Saka sets up Nketiah. And then you look at the Portsmouth game, 2 assists for Nelson and a goal for Nketiah, and they really did play a key role. I don't think that can be understated.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was that brilliant tweet from the official Arsenal account, who's been absolutely rinsing it over the last.
You would.
Yeah. But then there was 4 of them, so it was like it
was Willock, Saka, and Nketiah and Nelson, wasn't it? All with the trophy.
And I tweeted something like, the future of Arsenal looks amazing. It looks bright. I think you did as well. And it was incredible, and it's lovely to see homegrown lads shine and progress and actually represent the future. And they did so well, all of them. And they can be so proud of all their contributions throughout the run, not just yesterday.
Yeah, you mentioned that photo then with the trophy, and I think the really brilliant thing about that photo is, you remember right back at the start of the season, obviously Stuart McFarlane is Arsenal's official photographer, brilliant photographer, and absolute Arsenal legend in a way.
Yeah.
There was a photo from the Emirates Cup where it was from behind, and it was Willock, Nelson and Saka, I think.
Right,
it was kind of, the Emirates in the background of the three of them standing together, and it was, this is the future of Arsenal. And then you look, 12 months on, and they're there with the FA Cup. They've made, as I say, such a big impact, and they deserve everything they've earned this season because they've worked hard and they've got the talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And well remembered for that as well. My memory's terrible for stuff like that. But I do remember that photo, and it was a really, at the time you think, okay, this is more we're looking to the future, but the future is now. Yeah. With that photo yesterday with the 4 of them together, and then you could argue there's a couple more as well. Obviously, Maitland-Niles as well, and if you factor in Smith Rowe as well, and other players too, the future's bright. The future is absolutely bright for Arsenal youngsters, and they're all homegrown as well, which is fantastic. Yeah,
well, we talked about the youngsters. Let's go to the opposite end of the scale. One of Arsenal's older players, David Luiz. He's had his critics this season, hasn't he? I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
But in the 2 games that have really mattered, the semi-final against Man City and the final against Chelsea, he has stepped up big time, hasn't he?
Yeah, he really has. It's all right being a sort of cultured ball-playing centre-half if you're performing against, a lowly side or a side in the cup. But if you're turning it on in games where you need that big performance from your big players, and there's no doubt that he is a big player. He has to be. The fact that Arsenal splashed that 24 million in terms of agents' fees and sort of fees to third parties and things like that. He has to be considered as a big presence in that squad, and he hasn't always delivered. And I've been quite a critic of him this season. But you like you say, the Man City semi-final and yesterday, he absolutely showed his quality and his class and his technique and his personality as well. He's a big character. I wouldn't say he's full of character most of the time, but he did show a lot of character there yesterday, as he did for the semi-final, and it was great to see. I don't know if you watched it on BBC or BT Sport, but on BBC they said the enigmatic David Luiz.
Wow.
So it's just like, what does that word refer to? Does it, there's a multitude of sins, there's a multitude of praises, basically. But enigmatic for me meant, someone who's quite erratic rather than enigmatic.
Bit of a mystery.
Yeah. But at the same time, he absolutely came through yesterday. He shone. Yeah. And he earned his, people were moaning. I was moaning about the 24 million that Arsenal forked out. He earned every penny of that yesterday.
Yeah. And obviously, he's got his Chelsea links. That was kind of a bit of a backstory. The same with Giroud, opposite way round. But the thing I really liked at full time is that beating Chelsea in an FA Cup final is always a nice thing as a fan. But you've got to think of the human side of it for Chelsea's players. It's never nice to lose a cup final, is it? But when Arsenal's players were celebrating, David Luiz obviously went off injured late on, and he went to the Chelsea subs and he was giving each one of them a hug, kind of saying it's all right, it happens. Yeah. I like that. There's a bit of a human side to it, and he's he's showing that respect that you do need. Yeah. As I say, being a London rival is nice, but you have to show that respect.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree, and I absolutely completely agree with what you're saying. Basically, Giroud, after Chelsea beat Arsenal 4-1 in Baku,
exactly, wasn't
as respectful.
Yeah,
and I was a big fan of Giroud at Arsenal. Obviously, Arsenal gave him the chance, and Wenger did really well for him as well. He was disrespectful.
Yeah, definitely.
After that 4-1 victory,
definitely,
he didn't have to rub it in so much. Basically, he didn't have to be so triumphant and triumphalist. Basically, and like you say, Luiz showed a lot of class yesterday. He obviously has got the Chelsea links and he's won the Champions League and he's got a lot of history with Chelsea, and he didn't rub it in at all. And that is the mark of an Arsenal man. That's the mark of an Arsenal Football Club. Basically, the fact we have got that class. Yeah. I was really proud of him yesterday.
Yeah, let's touch on the final few points. Obviously, you mentioned Baku there. We don't want to talk too much about that, but do you think that in a way put the ghosts of Baku to bed?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of Arsenal fans hurt for a lot of reasons after Baku. It was just a nightmare all round. Arsenal didn't turn up. Like I say, I was on TalkSport literally on Friday, and this young Chelsea fan came on and basically, I was quite happy to have a chat about Arsenal and just be really respectful. But he started on about, Arsenal didn't turn up in Baku, and it's like, well, there's ways of saying it.
Yeah.
Immediately he made it personal, because Baku, a lot of people hurt after Baku, and yesterday the slates weren't clean. We made amends for Baku yesterday, and it was glorious.
Yeah. You mentioned the Chelsea fans there and their reaction. There was a lot of debate about some of the referee decisions from Anthony Taylor, who's I think he's the first man to take charge of the FA Cup finals, wasn't he?
Yeah. Absolutely. 2017.
Yeah, it was obviously the penalty, the sending off, and the situation with Martinez where he looked like he handled it outside the box. I personally thought it was outside the box, but the replays have shown otherwise. There's a lot of talk about Anthony Taylor's decisions, but I think he got them all spot on.
Yeah.
Obviously coming at it from a slightly biased angle, but I think he got them all right.
I think there were a couple of decisions where if I was a Chelsea fan, God forbid, I would feel really hard done by.
Wouldn't want to put you in that position.
No, absolutely not. I would feel hard done by, basically. But at the same time, as an Arsenal fan, I really don't care.
Yeah.
As a journalist, there's loads of articles to be written about it, and you can be really objective. But for me, today's not the day to be objective. I don't care. We beat Chelsea. We had absolute revenge for Baku, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, and obviously the FA Cup as a whole, that was Arsenal's 14th FA Cup, which is a competition record.
Yeah, absolutely.
How important is the FA Cup to you as a fan? Because to me, it is obviously, to win the Premier League and to win the Champions League, if we ever did that, would be brilliant. It would be one of the best feelings ever. But there's something so special about the FA Cup, isn't there? It's just got that different feel to it.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right, Dan. And Mikel Arteta was asked before the game what his views of it, and he said it's the most beautiful day in English football, the FA Cup final.
I agree.
And it was just wonderful, basically. Obviously, if you asked, what would you rather win? It would be the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely.
But at the same time, there is a real prestige to winning the FA Cup. There's a real mystique to it. There's a real honour. There's a real pride in it as well, and it was just wonderful. I can't emphasise how good it was yesterday to win the FA Cup for, as you say, a record 14th time, 2 ahead of Man United now as well, which is great. And you know, there was a brilliant tweet. I can't remember who tweeted it. I retweeted it this morning. Basically, we've dropped the FA Cup more times than Spurs have won it this century.
Lovely. That is what we like. That is what we like. And obviously, you know, we've been basking in this glory of winning the FA Cup. But to look slightly ahead, it's going to be, you know, winning that is going to be massive. It's going to be something really big for Arsenal to build on, isn't it?
Yeah.
For the upcoming season, which, you know, not pulling any punches is going to be a really important season.
Yeah. Man City are going to strengthen, Liverpool going to strengthen, Man United qualify for the Champions League again, that's given them a massive boost. Chelsea in the Champions League as well. There's various other clubs too. I'm not going to mention Spurs because I think they'll implode under Mourinho next season at some stage. We have to keep up with that chasing pack, basically. We have to at least narrow the gap slightly. And I think the fact we've you know, apart from the glory, apart from the silverware, the fact we've managed to qualify for the Europa League through winning the FA Cup is a massive boost because of those additional revenues, which can then be ploughed into bolstering the squad again. Yeah.
And just one last thing, obviously, you know, the 2019-20 season is finally over.
Finally over, yeah.
It's taken nearly a year.
Yeah.
And it's been a topsy-turvy season of plenty of ups and plenty of downs. But I think it's only right that we say thank you to subscribers, people who watch, and also the people who helped save the Gooner as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Dan. Yeah, thank you to everyone who subscribed to Save the Gooner. We managed to get 1,000 subscribers, so we're going to keep going with the print version. Thank you so much to each and every one of you for doing that. Thank you for everyone who's watched us on YouTube as well, who's interacted with us on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all the rest of it. We're growing our presence all the time on social media, and we're an alternative to people who want something a bit more intelligent, a bit more reasoned discussion, a bit more informed, intelligent, and irreverent debate as well. So thank you so much for that. Just in terms of Arsenal winning the FA Cup, it was wonderful, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. A real highlight to what has been, quite frankly, a terrible season.
Yeah,
hasn't it?
Well, that was just before I forget as well. You know, I went to my first Arsenal game last season, or this season, I should say now, was Barcelona away in early August. So it's literally a year. 12 months of one season. I know, obviously, you know, we know the reasons behind it and they're completely understandable, but this season feels like it's gone on forever. Yeah. It's been a gruelling, frustrating.
How long ago does Newcastle away feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was on holiday for Newcastle, but you actually did the game from the press box at James's Park, and it's been
a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it feels like maddening. It feels like a lifetime ago. It's been maddening. It's been frustrating. It's been exhilarating. It's been annoying. It's been awful. It's been dreadful. It's been absolutely uplifting. And you know, the culmination of it yesterday was winning the FA Cup. And it's a season we'll never forget, basically.
Yeah. For all the right reasons and the wrong reasons.
Absolutely.
The 2019-20 season might be over and it might finish on a high for Arsenal, but we're not going anywhere, are we? We've still got plenty of videos to come. We've got our end of season awards. Yeah. You can also keep up with all the off-season news from Arsenal on the online Gooner website.
All the transfer news that you do.
Of course, we've got everything you can ever want as an Arsenal fan. So make sure to head over to the website onlinegooner.com and like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed the FA Cup final as much as we did, and we'll see you very soon.